Further conversation with us this morning is the National Secretary of the Kenya Teachers in Hardship and Arid Areas Welfare Association, Ndun'gu Wangenye, and he's here with us this morning. Mr. Wangenye has been here before, and as we further this conversation, he's here with us again. Good morning, Ndun'gu.
Good morning. And I'm happy to be here once again so that we have this constructive discussion about the education of our country, because it affects us, it affects our children, and whatever decisions we make today as leaders will affect even the future generations to come. So we must get it right. We have no room for error.
Absolutely. We're having a conversation from CBC to CBE. Kenya's trial and error education system is what we're looking at today. But before we get into it, CT, has gone to a different African country from the last time that you were here. He's going to share a proverb and then you can interpret that for us.
Yes, when the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, a friend is someone who shares your happiness and your sorrows. A friend is someone who shares your happiness and your sorrows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
Is it?
Very true.
Really?
Somebody who shares with you all the time, that's a friend. And a genuine one, of course.
A genuine one.
Yeah.
So there's some fair weather ones who are only friendly with you.
They don't need to be with you when you're in happiness.
Good. Yes, but
when you're in sorrows, they run away from you. You must have a friend who is with you all the time.
Those are rare.
And they are very rare. I am not among them.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Right.
Well, all right then. We don't need just fair weather friends, essentially. We need them through and through the good times and indeed
that's the point.
Through the bad times. And so, we keep having, conversations around education and asking ourselves the question, okay, yikes, what is really going on, when we're looking at the system? Now, when we thought that, okay, things were looking a bit foggy here and there, we're not really sure what to do. Then we've come up last week and we said, okay, well, while you're at it and you're still confused about whether you're going to choose maths as applied maths or simple maths, as to whether you're going to have a secondary school at the lower level, still domiciled in primary schools, whether you're going to have STEM pathways or whether you're going to have... While all that was happening, then the good folks at the curriculum development said, actually, you know what? It's not going to be CBC anymore. Now it's going to be CBE. So throw that into your basket of confusion, put it up your pipe and smoke it, and this is where we are today. My goodness.
Let's start. Let's look things in a broader perspective. When we were here last time, I remember the bigger debate was whether maths should be compulsory or not, and we actually had a very heated debate on whether maths should be. I remember Dennis was pinning me and City asking me why should it be compulsory, and I even told them that personally I am a maths teacher, maths chemistry. That's my first degree before I did law, and. We even escalated that one all the way to Jogo House, all the way to Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and to the Teacher Service Commission. Actually, from here, I'm going for another meeting at the Teacher Service Commission.
Okay.
And one thing we also need to understand and celebrate is that our voices were heard.
They were.
So it means that whatever we say here does not go. It is not in vain. It's not an exercise in futility.
Absolutely.
Because we had a discussion here. We also escalated as stakeholders within the education sector because we are a legal entity. Kenya Teachers in Hardship and Arid Welfare Association is a legal entity recognized by the laws of Kenya. The other stakeholders, the teachers' unions, they are parents' associations, they are the sponsors, they are religious and faith-based organizations. All of us are stakeholders. And we said that maths is one of the... because whenever we say that when you are testing a child or a student, you test two things. One, literacy and numericals. So when that child is able to speak good English, good Kiswahili, good sign language, then where the numericals comes in, because that is the cognitive part of a human being. You should be able to count, you should be able to talk. The moment you have that, you have basic education. And that is why we escalated and said, let's have maths all the way to senior school, because that's where basic education stops. Then from there, as they advance to university and tertiary institutions, maybe they can choose other things to do and maybe drop maths. Because when you go to university, you may do linguistics. But you'll find that even when you're in university and you are doing linguistics, I told you, in Kenya School of Law, there is a unit called Legal Practice Management that has accounts bit of it, of counting in management. And most students usually fails because they don't want to hear anything about math. They say, I'm a lawyer, I don't want anything about math, but there is math. So what I can say is that there was a national conversation on curriculum, competence-based. Now it was curriculum, now it is education. On 25th at KICC. And that is when the government decided now this pressure is too much from stakeholders. People of Kenya have now talked. Why can't we now do as Kenyans are asking us to do? And I'm happy today to report that actually that one was executed. The KICD was tasked to go and revise and see for those pathways that are not STEM. Because there is social sciences and there is arts and sports. Can't they incorporate the bit of mathematics so that it becomes elementary mathematics, the general mathematics, okay, or the basics mathematics, not to details as to those who are doing STEM.
What they're calling simple math.
Exactly.
Because what we did hear from the Ministry of Education was that then, all right, if you're not taking the STEM pathway, then you will then just do simple math. If you will go in the STEM pathway, then you will then have applied math.
Yes.
Now, what may have then been a little bit confusing was that they are now giving 9 months. Interestingly enough, if you take those 9 months and plonk them into the calendar, it is the exact time that we have left in this school year before which grade 10s will report to school in January 2026. So they've been given those 9 months to then be able to ensure that this math, whether it is simple or applied, will then fit into the curriculum.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if that is enough time, but that's what we were told.
KICD is an institute that is very well staffed with competent people. Actually, if you go to KICD today, there are subject heads in each and every unit. Like you go to chemistry, there is an officer, almost the rank of a director, who is in charge of chemistry. There's another one in charge of mathematics. And I'm sure with the KICD, with the competence of the people and the training those people have, in fact, revising those curriculums to align, they may not even need 9 months. They may even require a month or 2. And then you'll see the curriculum is already out. But now, let's just go back a bit and ask ourselves, where did this confusion begin?
Yes.
Because I think that is the basis of everything. Today we are speaking, let's have maths, let's not have maths. Where did it begin? Remember, and I told you here, and I think CT will bear me witness, that the last time I was here, I said that competence-based curriculum started with when the Minister for Education was Dr. Matiang'i. Then Professor Magoha came in and escalated it. Then Machogu came and escalated, and now we have Migosi. The time that we had that problem is when we had Matiang'i. In fact, the issue, Matiang'i may be good. He brought many reforms in the education sector, but I will also poke holes on his style of management. He was non-consultative. And the moment you approach an attitude of non-consultation, you will definitely get wrong. In fact, it is the first time in the history of the review of competence-based curriculum that we are having a dialogue of all stakeholders on board. Personally, I was in KICC. Personally, I was in Mashinani when they were moving around the counties. Remember last time we were here, we said they are moving around the county correcting views from stakeholders. So let's be sure and say this. Let's put the blame where it is. Matiang'i, despite the fact he brought so many reforms in the education sector, he could not consult anybody. It was he would bulldoze and push it, and that is where problems started, and the rain started beating us. Then came Professor Magoha, who was also escalated what Matiang'i had started. And that is where even the confusion started. That, do we domicile junior secondary school in primary, or do we domicile it in secondary schools? And then the confusion started. We built, so many classes were built in secondary. Again, when the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms came, the parents said, no, these students are too young, let them be domiciled in primary. Those classes were left almost idle. Today, we are rushing to finish classes in primary schools, where there were classes and laboratories in secondary schools. So I think the entire thing, it is to make sure that as you are implementing anything, even in this company, or anywhere where you are in the management level, the first thing to do is to make sure you have an exhaustive consultation. Consultation does not mean you are weak. Consultation does not make you as a junior, an inferior reader. Consultations makes you strong, and you are supposed to consult on and on. Right now, we have already said mathematics, Let it be there in the other two pathways apart from STEM. Who knows? Maybe as we move ahead, there'll be some loopholes. Can't we come together, put our heads together and see where is this shoe pitching us? Can we now tighten?
But
can we
I ask
fix
this
it?
question?
Yes.
How on earth did maths suddenly become a center of such intense discussion? What is it? Because from what we read in the papers, statistics were being used. It was looked at and it was said that at primary school level, a much larger percentile of individuals manage to pass maths. When you look at the figures in secondary school, the figures get lower. That was among the reasons that they were giving in saying, because of this, we shouldn't then consider this thing to be compulsory. But in my opinion, that missed the point completely. Completely. Because there is a question of how do we train those who teach maths? If you look at the importance of maths, just the all-encompassing importance of maths in our lives on a daily basis and the practicability of maths on a daily basis, how the discussion of whether we should have it or not comes in, I don't understand. I would understand, let's add a bit more of this, let's spread a bit more of this, but people must be taught this subject. That to me ought to be the norm. But the norm, to have it or not to have it, at that crucial point in the lives of students, when they are now growing up, they are leaving adolescence, they are heading towards adulthood, when all the cognitive faculties that they have are beginning to wake up in more ways than they've ever known, when they need to reason, when they need to think, when they need to analyze, and maths does that for you. And there's the discussion, without having this discussion of how do we train our teachers so that students can A, like the subject, and B, do well in it? Because it is not an impossibility.
And Stephen, as you talk about that, remember that this conversation was actually being championed by directors, those who are in charge of implementing the curriculum, which begs the question, even now that has changed, what has changed their ideology about mathematics?
I doubt if it was their idea. Yeah, let me tell you, you heard me say on this, and I'm glad our brother is here.
He's here.
KICD, the people they have there, they know their stuff. Even this question I'm asking, they can answer easily. Who gave those instructions for them to give that nonsensical order? Who? Where did that influence come from? Because it is utterly nonsensical.
Can't they say no or advise for better?
City, I think it was a mistake. I think it was a misstep. I think they overlooked that one. Because as I'm telling you,
they do not. Those people don't make such mistakes.
Because City, as I'm telling you, this thing came. And I think it started around 2017. That is when money was after 2017 general election. That is when we started pouring money to change the curriculum of this country. And 5 years, all the way up to 2022, money was being poured in beds. Retooling of the teachers.
You are, and how are they retooled?
Yeah, that is what I'm telling you. Retooling of the teachers, expanding infrastructure, particularly in secondary schools, so that those students in junior secondary schools, they were supposed to be domiciled in secondary schools. Changing of the content in the textbook and the materials that will be used to teach CBC. And as that debate, I remember by then, Honorable Sosion was a NAT Secretary General. He raised a lot of objections on that. But no one could hear. I was by then, and I can confess this, by then I was also Executive Secretary of KUPPET in charge of Laikipia County. And I remember we raised objections on the same. But all the objections we were raising were falling on deaf ears.
Whose deaf ears?
Of course, the minister was there, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. And we couldn't move. That is when we decided, in fact, at one time, we issued a strike threat on the same. But we were told we want to suppress the government, we want to fight the government. And so, somehow, we couldn't move. And that is why I'm telling CT, either by design or by default, there was a misstep. And that is what we got it wrong, from the word.
When you say misstep, it means somebody was walking in a certain direction.
Yes.
And they lost their footing.
Yes.
No. This is deliberate. It is deliberate. Money to change an entire structure of education. Did they understand the ramifications of that? Did they actually comprehend what they were doing? And what it is, that was going to be the outcome. There's all the lovely talk of what we're going to produce at the end. Money was being poured in. Was it enough to actually restructure the system so that the thing that is mentioned as the pleasant outcome can be achieved? Was that adequately done? The retooling, as you say, were the teachers really prepared? Was it a continuous process that even as we talk of now, we can say, this is where it started, this is where we are, and this is what we're doing? How is it that there is very little discussion about how teachers were trained and retooled? We heard complaints. Inadequate retooling, inadequate preparation, inadequate numbers of teachers. That is the conversation.
We also heard reluctance of teachers to pay the training fees, which was then now lumped on them towards this new curriculum. We heard that as well.
Yes, and that is what the reason I'm saying it is, Mr. CT and I'll bear me witness, is why are we now back on the issues that we raised? Why are they now being incorporated? It means we had missed them in the initial conception of the ideas.
No, we didn't miss them.
We missed them because we didn't implement them.
Somebody forced the ideas down our throats. We did not miss them.
Very good.
Ndun'gu,
Now,
if we can look at it and try to do so with a clear eye.
Yes.
That when you look at something like education, when you come and you ask that the entire system essentially be changed, you're not saying that you tripped and fell along the way because you didn't see where you were going. You've asked for a fundamental change in the manner in which you're going to do something.
Yes.
You can't say that you missed a step.
Yes. My sister, today if I decide to walk from here on the way to the road, the idea is for me to reach the main road.
Yes.
That is the idea.
Yeah,
that
but
is
you
what
don't
I've conceived
but you
in my
don't
mind.
walk out of the window.
Yes, that is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
As I am walking from here to the main road, there will be stairs, there will be doors, isn't it? There will be clearances. In the course of walking, because the idea of changing the curriculum was there globally, and even in Kenya, everybody there was a need to change from 844 to the compass-based curriculum.
Was this need?
But now, on the conception on how now do we move, so that we move from 844 to CBE or CBC for that matter. How do we move along the way? That is where now we started other challenges. We don't have enough. Do we domicile here? Do we not domicile here? Mathematics should be compulsory, should not be compulsory.
No, we've gone too far ahead. Why was this change necessary?
Yes. Because we talk about
what was wrong with
844?
What was it that the 844 system was not able to fulfill that required a complete overhaul? What was it?
Yes. The issue about the conception of changing 844. 844 was conceived as exam-oriented system, whereby today or tomorrow I have a mathematics paper to sit on. I'll spend the night on my legs in the bucket, cold water, reading and cramming everything, so that I pass the exam. Then when I get that A in the market, I am brought here to this studio. I cannot deliver anything.
Actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't. The 844 had elements that are very similar to that of the CBC, just that they were never implemented.
Yes.
The issue of continuous assessments was in 844. I myself was a teacher. And we are the group that ushered in the 844. I taught the older system and I also taught in the 844. So I know the elements that in theory were there. The practicality that you speak of with regards to an exam, if what you required was to ensure that instead of simply waiting for an exam at the end of a certain period in time, you introduce this continuous assessment. Are you telling me to introduce continuous assessment, you have to overhaul an entire system?
There was a challenge, CT. CT, let me ask you this. Why did we have, all of a sudden, upsurge of exam irregularities in this country? Because there came a time whereby any school would do anything to get good grades. You find a school, the entire school, and it was there even in, I think not so many years ago, whereby you would find student in KCP, all of them, social science, They are all scoring 76 marks. All of them, almost 120 students. Is it possible? Is it practically possible?
But
so that they want to shine, to be seen in the newspaper, to be seen in this TV of KTN, to be seen, Dennis to announce that school A, school B is the one topping, and we are carrying those children shoulder high.
Yeah.
It is like an advertisement in the market. That is what now brought the mind that now. Are we testing? And then when the students get A, fine, they get the A's. And today, madam, you'll bear me witness, there is even a saying that kuna kuwaga na ya Matiang'i na ya ingine. Because those two A's are different, isn't it? Because a student will get an A, will go to the university, and even maybe cheat his way. But when you bring here or that student here in the market and you give him a task to do, he cannot execute. So that is why we needed to see, where did we get it wrong? City has said we needed to change, even if it is a system of exam irregularity and all that. We could fix it in 844 and still continue with 844, which I agree.
Yes.
City, that one I agree 100%. But there are other factors also that also maybe CBC brought in. Specialization. Like now, see, they are starting their selection by May 20th.
Yes.
They'll be starting their selection for for senior schools. Now, we are now starting to identify talents at tender age. Unlike the 844, which would go all the way up to Form 4. So that student who is specializing in sports, arts and sports, can be able to select a school. Because now selection will not be based on marks. It is now the school that is giving the pathway that you have decided. The student that have decided to specialize in social science, align or that school that is giving that pathway. A student who wants to be an engineer, he will choose a school that is giving that pathway. That is a slight demarcation. City
where in the world,
from 844, whereby we categorize, and there is no national schools, no extra county.
Where in the world do we have such a system that we can benchmark with?
And I think as well, yes, answer that first, yeah.
No, I'm just asking. Because in the same manner in which you are telling us what it's supposed to do, the 844 did the same thing. Even then we questioned, why were we changing from what we had to the 844?
To the 844.
It was questioned.
Yeah.
But the freedom that we now enjoy wasn't available then. So you questioned it and then you kept quiet.
Because the 844 that City talks about, leave alone the one that was being out of 500, it started with 700, where there was...
I did the 700.
Where there was arts and craft, there was home science, there was agriculture. But all those along the way were dropped.
Yes.
But they are back now.
But they are back now.
back.
So that means it's just 844 with a different name.
They're back now. The same subject courses that were being studied then are still being studied now. Remember that there were some subjects that were dropped, and so you had a lesser number. But then we had an amalgamation of courses. So now whereby you're doing environment science and agriculture as one, combined course. So we just have the same thing called differently. Why do we seem to enjoy, and we're going to ask this question as we go to a break, we seem to enjoy playing this guinea pig laboratory game with our children in school. And we say, okay, somebody sits somewhere and says, this is a great idea that I have. Let us take it to education and see if it will work. Let's throw something on the wall and see if it will stick. We don't think about implementation metrics. We don't think about the resources that are needed. We don't think about the very important teachers that are needed, not just to stand in a room and teach, but need to be trained along the way. And then, as though that is not enough, we then form parties and work. What are they called? Those ones. Then
Presidential working parties.
Yeah, we go around the country. We say, do this, try this, add this, remove this.
But that is important.
Then, hold on. Then we take the old system and then we remove the curriculum and then we make it education. I am asking, why is it not possible to take the one thing which seems to be working, and when we have a problem, we fix it instead of taking the thing, tossing it out the window? Look at the children who started CBC. Grade 3. They are the ones that you're talking about now.
Yes.
That are going to make this election on the 20th of March.
Yes, they are going to grade 10.
Confused for the last 6 years.
Yeah, they're going to grade 10.
And we think it is okay. Confused.
And how much schooling have they actually even
Have
missed?
they actually done? What have they actually learned and learned properly? From 2019, we are now in 2025. 6 years these children have been the guinea pigs. We try and test, we try, we go, we see. Really? Now, we are still testing them again to see if this thing we are throwing on the wall is going to stick. And for some reason, somebody in there, what I'm choosing to call absolute madness, is imagining that it is okay and that we will present these children in the next 3 years as gold. How?
CT will bear me witness.
CT has been bearing you witness a lot.
He was in the other system of which other system were you in CT? The one that you are going to Form 5 and 6,
yes,
and A levels and O levels.
I studied in it.
Yes.
I taught in it.
Yes, and madam, the moment you are changing from one line or one lane to another, then definitely there will be teething problems. What I want
this is not teething problems.
What I want to say is this. What I want to say is
sorry,
this.
Ndun'gu.
Yeah, what I want to say is
hold
this.
on, Ndun'gu, sorry.
Thank
you know teething problems, the teeth will grow. You know that?
Yes.
You have a teething
It's the
problem.
pain,
It's
because
the
the
pain,
teeth is
it
growing.
will go away. The tooth will eventually come out, then we will chew and we'll move this one.
I'm sure CT can tell us what they underwent when they were moving 1989 or 19, they are about 85. When they were doing the last KCE, now moving to KCP, when they were abolishing O levels and are now going to 844, there were so many challenges. But now I agree with you. And that is why I started by saying the inception of the idea and the drivers who are there at that time. In fact, madam, what is being done today, all these problems, and we are trying to fix what would have been done
in 2017,
2018. That is what we are doing today. Because those people were there. In fact, I'm telling you without blinking of an eye, we had even issued a strike notice and we kept on complaining. Teachers are not ready. At one time, we could go to a center and you find that teachers themselves, they don't know what they need to go and teach. And they are the implementers of the curriculum.
And now, do they know? Do they know what they're supposed to teach now?
Now, I want to say this, that the retooling has been taking place, and I want to speak from data, particularly from Teacher Service Commission. Currently, as we speak, over 222,000 primary school teachers have been trained, have been retooled, for that matter, to be able to deliver the new CBE. Now we are calling it CBE, curriculum-based education. It's an education system. 75,000 JSS teachers, that is junior secondary school, have also been retooled. And we are speaking of about 154,000. That is from secondary schools, that is the senior secondary, have also been retooled. In other words, what we are saying, initially...
Over what period of time?
Now, starting from the time now, 2022, but because that is when the new government took in, and we started now making sure that we have public participation. Are we together? That's about 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
2 to 3 years from then.
Right.
And we are saying that initially, the teachers could not also themselves understand what they were supposed to deliver. The implementers. And you know, a teacher is a very important tool because it's a human resource. And if he doesn't conceptualize the idea, he may not be able to disseminate the same ideas to the children or to the students. We are now saying that today we are not like the way we were yesterday, because resources have been provided for retooling them.
Okay.
Although not all of them. Again, you'll understand and you'll bear me witness. For the first time, there has been an employment in 2 years. Over 80,000 teachers on permanent and pensionable basis.
Okay.
And in fact, initially, Teacher Service Commission used to employ about 5, maximum 10,000 per each financial year. Today, we have 2 financial years only, over 80,000. That's a magnificent number I've never seen being employed. We may leave the details of how they are employed, because there are issues on how the letters were being dished in the public, which was an integrity issue that we can condemn, all of us. But now that one aside, because that one have agencies that can investigate and implement it, there has been employment of over 80,000 teachers. Still, we have a shortage of about 90,000 teachers. But I think with the trend of more employment coming the way, we shall be able... I'm speaking like I'm in government. I'm not in government. I'm just trying to give facts. Because may think that I'm defending the government, but I'm speaking. I'm speaking facts as they are. Because those are facts, and they are there in the table, and anybody can verify and be able to substantiate. You know, I'm a lawyer, and I like defending substantial facts.
Those numbers are inadequate.
Yes.
Those numbers fall short. You see, the numbers you speak of represent teachers who are supposed to ensure that these children get the quality education that is being promised with this system. The moment we talk of a shortage, it means the children are going to be disadvantaged.
Yes.
They will not get the education that they should get. This really is the problem here. Because at the end of all this discussion, The CBC discussion seems to be of far more importance than the students who are supposed to be studying. So long as we're tinkering with it and we think that because we've employed 80,000, yes, it's good, but it is woefully short of the mark, because the students will not be able to get what they're supposed to get. So much as we say it is an improvement, why did we not plan and think this thing through more sufficiently? Because we're still tinkering with this. The students are still not getting a fair shake of the education system that we're saying is so wonderful.
You see, City, even when you talk about the numbers, we talk about 80,000, fine, we will clap. But remember, through those years, the teachers have gone on retirement. So even the 80,000 is just
died in the process.
It's just coming to replace the teachers who are there. So the numbers as well is low. So the 80,000 are not new teachers. That some were just replacing those who died.
Maybe just to correct you on that.
So as well as now, when it comes to the implementation, even the 844 itself was suffering from few teachers and lack of classrooms. That has again come into the new system that requires new classrooms and new facilities to be able to offer quality education. Begs the question.
Ndun'gu,
why didn't you plan through this?
Can you clarify on the issue of the numbers of teachers that come in every year?
And I want to correct Dennis just a bit, to correct him and tell him that the 80,000 teachers are newly employed teachers, excluding the replacements.
Okay.
Because replacements, Dennis, and I can tell you from data and statistics, about 10,000 teachers retire, and those ones are replaced, not necessarily when there is mass recruitment. Whenever, every quarter of the government, the TSE always replace teachers. Yes.
Does it happen the way you're saying? Are they replaced the way you're saying? Because you seem to be suggesting this one leaves, another one comes.
No,
Is that what happens?
not necessarily that way.
No, it doesn't happen that way at all.
Every advert from Teacher Service Commission, every advert, and CTL, you'll be able. I'll give you any advert that will come for replacement. It usually states very clearly: replacement of teachers who have exited the service through natural attrition. That may be death, maybe retirement, maybe resignation, maybe any other form of exiting the service. And they usually put the numbers exactly, and they advertise for those positions. The 80,000 I'm speaking about, because we are employed, I think 46,000, then there was another, almost now getting to 90,000. Those were new because of the need to implement the CBE. That is why there were mass resources that were poured to employ masses. Remember, most of them were also in interns. Then they were converted to permanent and pensionable. So that is a clear distinction which I wanted to bring out. Number two, there is a question that you have asked, Dennis. I think you can...
the planning process of this entire system, because I was basically going back to what City had asked. The planning of these new curriculum, right? The previous 844, still we are facing issues to do with population numbers in classrooms. That means we needed more structures.
Yes.
But here we have a new curriculum that requires laboratories, requires new classes, and still we're not getting it right.
Very good. I think that is where I had not got it. So, and as I'm telling you, again, since 2018, let's speak of about 7 years since 2017, because now we are in 2025, almost now getting to 8 years. There have been massive infrastructure development, and actually that has been given a two-front that I want you to understand. The two-front approaches are these. One, there is massive investment, particularly from CDF, because those CDF, depending with the area MP, who are able to focus and see this is where we are heading as a country in terms of education, they are pouring a lot of resources on infrastructure development to make sure that we have classes at the grassroots. And actually, there was a very good example here in Kiharu, in Muranga, whereby even there was also facelift and also making sure there was expansions. Then there was also another grant. And today in the Capitation, there is also grant that is there, a budget item, that is called infrastructure development, that is only approved when you are building a laboratory, when you are building an extra class, and that money you cannot draw unless you are doing infrastructure development. So there was also massive money poured to make sure there is infrastructural development. Do I want you to understand that Kenya is one of the only countries in Africa, that commits almost 30% of its recurrent budget on education.
And so?
And so?
Yes, and so?
Therefore means the money that is being poured in education to improve it, because we have traveled. I was in Burundi another day, Bujumbura, and you can even see the types of crisis and the infrastructure development we have in Kenya versus what they have.
Ndun'gu, if 30% of our GDP actually all went into education, all sectors of education, my friend, the education system we have in this country.
I didn't even say GDP, I said recurrent expenditure.
Recurrent expenditure.
Yes, I've gone to GDP, and for a very good reason. 654 billion.
Yes.
Okay? That's the figure. Okay? That you're talking about the 2024-2025 budget. It is a colossal amount of money.
A lot of money.
That money would not allow for the gaps we are seeing and the gaps we're discussing here.
Yes.
Whether it is at the university level, whether it is at the primary level, at whatever level, it would not. And yet we have those gaps. So it begs the question, as Dennis begs these questions. Yes, it would beg the question. Does that money that is budgeted for education, that huge amount we talk about so lovingly and so well, does it all go to where it's
supposed
intended?
to go?
The question of management now comes in. Because it's one thing to allocate resources.
Yes.
It's another thing to manage those resources.
Yes.
For effective output that they were intended for. I may not speak about management because I'm not there. But I know we commit and we budget a lot of money in our education sector.
I think
However, we have substantially, not where we were yesterday, we have substantially moved a step ahead.
Okay.
So you talk about management, but there is also the aspect that there is budget allocation, but there is a release of the funds, which does not happen from the national government. But then again, one would want to ask, are we really going to achieve the intentions of CBE without capitation and money going down where it deserves to go?
Very good. Let me start.
Do we see the grade 9 at the end of it coming out as the students we aspired to see through CBE?
Let me start with the first question you have asked about release of capitation. And I was waiting for that question. In 2024 versus 2023, and I'll give you data and statistics, because I like working with the numbers. I hope I'll get it right in my vote. But the capitation that was released in 2024 was 78% of what was intended to be released.
Okay.
In 2023, it was 54 point something. I'll give you the exact, even the decimal points. And I'll give you the substantive figures. In 2022, it was slightly lower. It was the 2023 was about 54. 2022 was about 51%. What are we saying? That substantially, and I'll give you the exact figure, that substantially the release of capitation has increased as the time goes by and with the years. What are we saying? It is one thing, because I've ever been in the county government and budgeting processes. It's one thing to budget. It's another thing for you to release or disband that money that are budget item. What are the reasons? The reasons that come is on revenue allocation, revenue correction. You may budget that this year I'm going to do the renovation of this house at a cost of maybe 100 million. And the intended bed where I'm going to get those resources, I'll maybe charge levies here and there. Then when you go to the ground to correct the levies, you are not able to meet the targets. So what do? You reduce, instead of 100 million that you had budgeted, you say first I'll do that a million, then the next financial year I'll be able to increase, and that is what has been happening. There was some challenges in correction of revenue. So when money was being released, they couldn't release all the money because the budget item is there, but the resources are not actually
Allow
there.
me to ask you,
Yes,
that this situation that you speak of has happened every year without fail for the last 6 years. Now, if you're laughing because you know, if you tell me that it happened in 2021 because we were not able to go to the ground and collect, that the source of revenue then failed in 1, 2, 3, and that because of that we will increase it next year, then maybe I would understand that it happened 1 year. But this is a trend. 64 billion shillings is the amount of money that has not been paid in 5 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, what you're telling me is that there's been an increase from 51% of capitation in 1 year to 54% an increase the year after that, and then 76%. So we should be impressed that now we have reached 76%.
78.
Oh,
78.
I beg your pardon. 78% that we have reached that amount, and we should be very happy that at least we are not at 54. But remember that this money was budgeted and that you made another budget the next year and still made this education the largest budget item, knowing full well that you still had the last year that you had not paid. I don't know, Ndun'gu, if you're expecting that we should be impressed.
But
No, please,
yes.
should we actually say, no, they're trying, and we've increased from last time? Should we be happy?
My desire would be 100% release of
Not your
capitation.
desire. The responsibility of government should be 100% of that money that they said that they were going to put towards education.
Yes.
We're not talking about going on holiday. We're not talking about sitting by the beach and sipping a pina colada. We're talking about children going to school.
But let's look at it this way. Also, do, so that you also understand.
Okay.
I've just told Dennis here that when the guidelines for release of capitation, particularly the circular that comes from PS, comes out, there is local transport and travel. Maybe they allocate out of 22,244 that is given to each child. Maybe they say this one will cost 3,000. There is electricity, water and contingencies, maybe 2,000. And then all the way up to 22,244. But now I told Dennis, there is money for infrastructure development. That is a vote head. Okay? Maybe the vote head is carrying 5,000. But now there is school A or school B or whatever other schools that has not submitted its drawings and designs for approval for this money to be released.
That's why the money is not.
As an accounting officer.
That's not the reason why the money is
I'm
not
just giving an example.
Okay.
I'm just giving an example. As an accounting officer, can you release this money or you let it go? There are no drawings, there are no proposals, there are no designs approved by the Minister of Public Affairs. That is number one. Number two, Number two. Every budget, and even in this company, and you'll bear me witness, every budget has surplus and deficits. True or false? Every budget you draw, even in your house, you draw a budget, sometimes it has surplus, sometimes it has a deficit. The moment a budget has a deficit, you try to fill the deficit.
But we
Does
don't.
it mean, is it a must that the deficits will be filled?
I'm sorry, Ndun'gu, but that thing that you've just said,
Yes.
that you try to fill the deficit, it has not happened in 6 years. That deficit, to try and fill the deficit for children to go to school. You know, if we saw that there was an attempt for that deficit to be filled, we have never heard that people who want to travel outside the country on benchmarking don't have enough money. They always have enough money. We've never heard that when it comes to personal emoluments that they don't have enough money. We've never heard.
Mileage
But somehow we've even seen that there's an increase, 366,000 per member of parliament this year for their own salaries. But this is the thing. When you do have a budget deficit, in a normal world where people are walking upright in a forwardly direction, you would see that there would be an attempt to fill the budget. But that's the problem. There has been no attempt to fill the deficit when it comes to education. And I'm still asking eternally, why?
And as
Okay.
you answer why, the gaps that you're talking about, the 78%, the gap that remains, what exactly does that do to the quality of education?
Of course it affects. It affects because money was budgeted for, but it was never released. That one I agree 100%.
Okay. Now answer the why.
You know, do is putting me on defense like I'm defending the government. But what I'm saying,
you told us we should be impressed because 2 years ago they
but what
did.
I'm saying,
they did
what I'm saying,
51%.
I'm trying to show you from where we have come from to where we are currently.
That at least
that we have
Wait
not
a
yet
moment.
reached there.
So we are supposed to be content with mediocrity.
That at least mentality is what
Something
God
doesn't
must deliver
happen
us
as it
from.
should, and then we should be happy somehow.
should
No,
clap.
we shouldn't be happy. Actually, and I'm happy, because anytime we come here, we have a debate. Things are done. We came here, we complained about mathematics, it was implemented. Today we are here, we are saying, let all the money be released. The 64 billion that are deficit. But now look at it like this. And that is a proposal. If I would, today, because I'm not Minister for Education or PS, if I would be in that seat, this is what I would do. I would make sure next year, I do not release 78%. Okay? Next year, I would make sure I release 90%. Then the other year, I release 99%. Then progressively I make sure the deficits that are there cumulatively for years. Because look at today, Dennis, counties, county governments, because we are also there, county governments have the biggest pending bills than any other, even national government. The county government pending bills are running into billions. And if it is not checked, what does that mean? Somebody went to site, constructed a classroom for ECD, supplied goods, and he has never been paid to date. That is, the budget was drawn with deficits, implementation was done or not done, then it affected the quality of services at the county level. So we are talking a big debate about budgeting and about implementation. Okay? So what I would say and what I would hammer the government to do is to make sure money for education is released 100%. Assume I take my proposal. Maybe I'm a minister for education. I take my proposal, release all my money for education 100%. Then the minister for security will also come. Release all my money for security 100%. Then another one comes. What does it mean? And maybe the budget, the revenue targets have not been met. They'll be cut in each and every sector so that we balance everything. However, it should not be an excuse, because the moment we get this as an excuse, it will compromise the quality of education for our children.
You see, when these monies are not released, we see a situation where those who are managing education, our head teachers and whatnot, threaten to shut down schools because they're unable to maintain students in schools, right? Here we talk about a budget that is not working, yet we see another aspect of another government institution is busy adding emoluments and also busy adding salaries on themselves, which goes again, beg the question. How important is education in this country?
From where I sit, if there is one sector that should be well funded and in time, it should be education. Because it's about the future of our children.
But it's being seen as a by the way.
So now,
however, I'm not in the implementing team.
of course, yes. Look, it continues to be that there's so much that we need to continue to bring to the fore, but this is one of them.
Yes.
That if there was an effort to see that we actually say where we find the extra money, we don't do that. But we say, let's see what we can do next year to make it look like 100%. So where do we actually go from here? This is the question.
Maybe also as my parting shot, I would say this, that yes, there has been, as you did put it, there has been sort of gambling with particularly on implementation of CBC, CBE.
Yeah.
And I think we need to bring that to an end. And I'm happy also because of the steps that have been taken so far, because there are issues that we started raising almost 7 years ago. There are things that we can now start seeing, being done, being implemented, retooling. There is escalation of the same, making sure the infrastructures are in place. We can see some progress. We are also seeing progress, as I have given the figures here, on the release of capitation. Although, again, we still could condemn that one because we are still not yet there. But there is significant progress, which can be tangible figures and tangible things. But now, as we would tell the government, let education be a priority basis sector in this country. Because we are speaking with the lives of future generation. And if we mess
a little bit,
it's like this building. You know this building, if one column tilts
the whole thing is gone.
The entire building will come down crumbling.
Yeah.
So this is a generation whereby if we tilt just a bit, then this generation will come down and that generation will come to haunt us.
We've actually tilted.
Yes.
We've actually tilted. So the question is, how do we bring it back to where it should be?
And it is a collective responsibility.
Absolutely, and we must continue.
Yeah, it's a collective responsibility.
Ndun'gu Wangenye is the National Secretary of the Kenya Teachers in Hardship and Arid Areas Welfare Association, has been our guest this hour. Continue to look at the trials and errors. Hopefully soon we'll get towards successes. Isn't it? Good morning.
Okay,
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.